Hi, this is Mike Jansen, producer of the Storytelling series. In this episode, we get to know Jennie DeVoe. Jennie is an independent singer-songwriter and voice talent with a soulful blues Americana vibe, whom Bonnie Raitt calls a great songwriter and one of the most talented and hardest-working musicians I know. Jennie is impressive. She's built a successful music career from a grassroots effort without the assistance of a record label. She manages to draw audiences in with her anecdotes and personal stories between each song. It's hard to attend one of Jennie's shows and not feel like she's your personal friend by the end of the night. Here's Jennie DeVoe.
Well, when I was little, I can remember just being all over the place. Had an attention span of a gnat, and had grown up in a little town called Muncie, which, if you're in Indiana, you know is sort of infamous in some ways. But I was the middle child. Got an older sister and a younger brother. And I always loved music. I sort of followed my dad around because my dad listened to albums like Glenn Miller Band, Louis Armstrong, Billie Holiday, different greats. He'd listened to Gershwin, all these things. And I think those sort of stuck to me. I seemed to be the kid that was always like doing dramatic like reenactments of plays or musicals or whatever, thinking I was really awesome. And everybody would giggle because I was, 3. And I just thought I was really nailing it. But, my childhood was great. My mom and dad are still alive. I'm lucky about that. And but I had a very itchy soul, so I really needed to find fun things to do, and I sort of got in trouble a lot. And eventually, music became my salvation, it seemed. It was like that's the thing that settled me down. All the things that, we used to go to concerts and things like that. And I always thought when I was at concerts that I was not really enjoying them fully. I thought, I really want to be up there. Like, I want to be one of the boys doing, playing guitar and doing all that stuff. And I kind of tried to put that to the side, went to college at Ball State, graduated with some counseling, psychology, and telecommunications degrees. And the minute I moved to Indianapolis, within, I think, 3 weeks, I was in a band again. So it was sort of an inevitable part of me that I just needed to give into. My dad had really good taste, and the thing that I remember was he was very particular about, he sort of had an engineer's mind, but he had just really good taste in things, whether it was clothes or music. I remember him taking our hall closet, which was very tiny. It wasn't a big house. And he took the hall closet where you're supposed to like store things. I don't know, make it a pantry or make it, put all your linens in there. He made it like a record, like you'd open it up and it was like there is all of this like on every shelf, either reel-to-reel stuff, all of his special records, and then his special record player. And I remember him being very particular about we could not touch that, but I would ask to listen to certain things. And it was sort of a, yes, we'll listen. It was a special thing. Like if we were going to listen to music, it was, Dad had to do it, clean the records off. I mean, I could tell that he really loved music. And my mom and dad both did choir, church choir all the time. I didn't particularly want to go do that with them, but I did have to go to church and sit and learn to read, follow notes, and then I ended up singing in the church choir. And so some of it was forced on me, but the exciting part, I think, was listening to the stuff that seemed so magical. Just big band stuff, all that stuff. And my dad tells a story about when he had Louis Armstrong play at his fraternity and got to meet Louis Armstrong, got his autograph. And so I have that now, which is real special to me. When I was little, I had a huge imagination, and I imagined doing what I'm doing right now. I would tell people I was going to be either a novelist, I mean, at a very young age, with nothing to write about. I don't know what I was thinking, but I had this vision for myself at a really young age that I would be on stage, that I'd have a microphone, and I had, I would play act with my very best and only friend. I was super shy. For somebody who wanted to be on stage, it was kind of an odd thing, because all the way up through 6th grade, like from the time I was very, very little, up through 6th grade, I really only had one friend. But we play acted and laughed. We would record ourselves. We'd put on little shows in the neighborhood. I don't even think people wanted to come to our shows, but we would knock on all the neighbors' doors and let them know we would be doing a pogo stick play in my driveway. We would get, and we'd do songs, and I think they came out of just being neighbors and feeling obligated, and also probably just this like curiosity about what we were doing. And so whenever we did it after that, everybody showed up at the end of our driveway. We'd throw candy at them. We'd do pogo stick activities, and we'd sing, and then we'd dismiss everybody. So when I was little, there was something in me from a very early age that just loved the excitement. It was almost like I couldn't really concentrate on anything but something that was fun. And so I would use my imagination. I would write, I would draw. I did try to go to art school because I drew and painted a lot, but I was a pretty bad painter, so I was very limited with that talent. But I dreamed I would be on stage, or I would be a famous painter or a famous writer. And I think my attention for probably writing a novel has gotten better. I might do that still one day. I think I have a lot of really great, funny experiences to write about. But ultimately, writing songs and having just a more consolidated, full, final piece, it was perfect for me. All the little things that I did when I was growing up, my parents singing, their influence with music, I think all those things just made me want to do something with that in a big way. I couldn't sit still. So I had to find something that would allow me to, use kind of that frenetic energy that comes with performing and doing what I do. It's worked out pretty well. So I think I'm doing what I imagined I would do, which is pretty lucky. The thing that really started helping me get on a path toward music was probably when my parents made me do ballet and made me do piano lessons. And you would think maybe somebody who really wanted to do music in their life would want to do that, but that takes a lot of discipline. So I would take piano lessons. I would pick out the darkest sheet music, and Mrs. Boothby, my piano teacher, I think always thought I was a little odd and dark. I would pick out like The Godfather, theme to The Godfather, and I just had an overly dramatic sense of stuff. But again, I didn't have a great attention span or discipline, and I would get that later on. But piano and choir and all of those things started kind of forming me, but I didn't really, I think I was using the math part of my brain. When you do music, you can use the mathematical side, so you're reading. But I think the part that I really needed to develop was the creative part. It's like, I'm going to be a songwriter, I'm going to do these things, and you have to come up with your own stuff and tell stories and figure out how to do that. And I wouldn't have a lot of life experience to write about until much later. So I sort of took a big chunk of my life off of music, being too cool for school. In high school, I think all I did was sort of think about it, dream about it, but didn't really nurture it at all. After high school, though, right when I got into college, it just seemed, I started leaning into that again, like I just had this pull. So when I moved to Indianapolis, I ended up picking up the guitar and started learning the guitar in a non-mathematical way. I started singing while I was playing, and somebody was teaching me chords, and I probably took all of 2 lessons. And I think all of my training, watching my parents, that was my training when I was young, listening to my dad's music, and I would sing, and I'd make sure I hit the notes. And if you're sitting in church choir or school choir, somebody's always there to tell you you're not hitting notes. So I started really, I I had already, that had taken in me. It's like I knew when I was singing well, and I started singing from my diaphragm without, anybody really telling me to do that. I had a good sense of how to do it, I think, from watching really good people do it. But I moved to Indianapolis and, just got a job after college pouring coffee, getting donuts at a music studio. And I just would tell them while I was there in the music studio, I was like, hey, and I can sing, hey, and I can sing, hey. And they're doing commercials, for, local, regional, national things. And little by little, they started having me come up and demo things. And so I would sing, and I would even help write sometimes. And they were really cool guys, Bill Mallers and Chris Lieber. They owned Ripple Effects. And one day one of their big clients was Meyer Superstores. And Meyer, the guy who was at the ad agency was Tim Wallace. And they let me start doing all the demoing of the songs they were going to do to get this campaign going. It was going to be a 3-year campaign. And I was involved in trying to find them a singer. Like, we were trying to call like Bonnie Raitt's agent, Aretha Franklin's. Meanwhile, I'm demoing the stuff. And then I'm actually playing out with my band. So one day I see Tim come to my show, and I'm just singing, and he's got a bunch of his friends with him. They're sitting in the front row, and I do like a 3-hour set at the Rathskeller, and I'm singing Janis Joplin, and I'm singing, an array of things. It's like from soul to pop to, and then I'm putting in my little original songs too. And after that show, he introduced me to his friends, and they were bigwigs from Meyer Superstore. So they offered me the gig, and it was amazing. That gig helped me pay off all the college loans that I had, which were many, and I was newly married, so we were, trying to live, and you just kind of get yourself, it's all exciting. You graduate from college, you get married, suddenly you're like, how do I pay for life? And this kind of set me free. So I stayed at Ripple Effects for another year, but this ended up being like a 6-year campaign, and it was phenomenal, and I loved every minute of it. I did voiceovers and sang all different kinds of songs, and really learned what went on behind the business of, singing for your supper, and I loved it. No regrets there. And I got to do my independent music career at the same time, so it was really cool. It was a huge blessing, and I've never looked back really after that. Well, I've never really had any formal training as a songwriter, as a performer, as a guitar player, and I feel, even though I haven't had formal training, I do think I have always been an astute listener of all kinds of music, and I've let that be my, my schooling. It's like I get such a thrill out of singing. I get such a thrill out of doing something well with music that I think when people ask me, how do you do that if you've not had any formal training? How do you know if you're doing it right? The whole magic about being a songwriter is finding your own voice, taking all the things that you've loved about music and learning from them, but finding your own voice, finding your own writing style, I think can only come from your life and inside you, and taking what you know. And when you listen to music, I think when you're trying to learn, you make that your school, and you listen in a different way. The other thing I do and have always done is I pick up books about artists that I love. And as I started reading biographies about, Lucinda Williams or Eric Clapton or Jimmy Page, all these people who have such a passion and have developed their own sound, I started finding out that a lot of people can't even read music. So the greatest thing that I learned from studying people and artists I love behind the scenes, studying music, the greatest things that I've learned were attitude and passion are as important, if not more important, to writing a song as, to somebody who might come out of school and go, I'm ready and I've done this. And it's like, it doesn't really work like that. The music business happens to be one of the worst businesses you could be in. So navigating that music business or figuring out where you fit in is basically up to you. And I will sit with different artists at the beginning of, their careers, and they'll ask me questions. I think people innately want to have like here's the guideline, here's how you do this. And unfortunately, this business doesn't have any kind of stepping stones except for the ones you build and you put down. So I always try to tell people, you're going to build your own path. Like, no matter what I tell you, it is going to be your own path. Like, you're going to take what I say and go, that doesn't work for me, but this works for me, and go with that, because it's not like anybody is going to make your voice better but you have to do that. And you have to understand that art is subjective. People like certain things and they won't like other things. So the main thing is doing what you feel good about, taking great critique, taking it to heart and not being defensive when people are telling you, this works, this doesn't. When I started making records, I would be in the booth with glass and singing. When I sang all the Meyer commercials, I had to get such a thick skin because I had to realize, as much as I thought I was always singing on key, or as much as I thought I knew what I was doing, you have to be able to take direction. Being able to be producible and take direction, let things roll off you. I can let things roll off me about my music all day long. I think the hardest part is probably taking personal critiques when people, want to attack you for different things. And I've been really lucky that hasn't happened to me a lot, but it can happen, where it's like, I don't know, they'll say something about how you look or what you wear, and it's like, I can take that a lot less well than I can take somebody saying, that song doesn't work for me. I can take that pretty well. If I'm in the studio trying to record a song, it's like, maybe I need to put a little bit more emotion into that line. Maybe that word doesn't work. So, it's just this thing that has become its own animal that I appreciate and respect, and I try to just keep growing it. And it's an inexplicable thing, I think, to talk about singing and making music. I'm trying to talk about it and explain that it's just art. And some people will like it and some people won't. Some people love my voice and some people don't, and I'm okay with that. It's awesome. With my very first attempts at writing songs or putting songs to CD, I was younger, I was a little angstier, so it was more like emotion stuff I was putting down. After my first 2 records, I really took a step back because I wanted to figure out what the next kind of record was I wanted to make. And I think one of the things I learned was I had to ask myself, who are my favorite songwriters? Like, what gets to me the most? John Prine, John Hyatt, Bob Dylan. The thing is, the best songwriters write from places they know. So I had to make my world a little smaller, be a little more honest with myself. When I would listen to John Prine lyrics, I realized that, he just writes about simple stuff. It's about simple life things. It's just he says them in his own unique way. So I think after my first 2 records, I think I did some clever stuff on them. I got radio play. I licensed them to TV shows, major TV shows, and that was great. But I think as I was growing and maturing, I wanted to be not just a pop artist. I really wanted to be a storytelling songwriter. And the way that really started hitting me was at my shows, in between songs, something started happening. I just started talking, and I would tell a story about the day. And getting a laugh. I think this is the closet comedian in me. Getting a laugh was like, talking about something real that happened to me, which is the best thing you can do. Making up stuff. Like when I watch comedians, the ones that really make me giggle and laugh aren't the shocking ones, and they aren't the ones who I can tell maybe made up a story completely. I love the silly stuff, the real stuff that people reveal. They become vulnerable on stage. So I started realizing that not only was it important that I told stories within my songs that people could relate to, but in between the songs, that was so important to my fans. I would start getting emails back from the emails that I started sending out. I would kind of just start writing stream of consciousness. So I have two things going on. My live shows have an important element where I'm looking for someplace in that show to connect to the audience. Not every venue provides that. Not every situation provides that. So my favorite shows have become the ones where the lights go down, people are seated, and it's basically evident what you're there to do. You're there to listen. It challenges me to be better. I sing certain parts of my lyrics better because there's a quietness and everybody's waiting. So it really drives you as a songwriter to get better. It's like there are certain songs from my first two records that if I'm going into a listening situation with a listening audience, I just won't do them because I don't feel like I'm saying anything much. I might have been rocking out. I might have hit some notes that were unbelievable. But it's really, I've started fine-tuning and narrowing things I want to say. And it's just real life experiences that I'm trying to say in different ways. I guess it's sort of a mellowing that's happened to me, but I do still rock out. And I know how to write a song too that's just fun, just for fun. But I have to be able to mean the lyrics. Being able to mean something when you sing it, an audience can tell, especially an audience that's sitting really close. They can see if you've mailed it in, if your mind is wandering. They can see if you're engaged or if you're just like waiting for the show to end. So my main goal as a storyteller is to write good songs and bring those songs and be in the moment every time I sing them. And truthfully, some of the things I've written change meaning as I sing them, depending on the day. They definitely mean something unique and different to each listener because people will say this line in this song, and somebody might over here might talk about the same song, but a completely different line. And to them, it means something completely different. So I've also become a little careful about revealing, every single inspiration for every single song, because being a little metaphoric and saying things in a certain way is good. It allows people to embrace a song and make it their own. They came from a certain place for me, but I don't have to tell that to everybody because they don't need to have that planted in their brain that that's what it means. It's like, you know what? I'm going to be a little elusive about some of this because people are grabbing on to certain lines and things and owning them. And it's like, wow, that's a huge compliment, and it's a huge gift to me. People will say to me sometimes, do you get sick of people coming up and talking to you? And it's like, no, I really don't. I really, I need it, and I think I kind of thrive on it. And the things people say to me, luckily, are wonderful things. So I'm blessed. I'm sure not everybody loves everything I'm doing, but I've been kind of protected, and that. Nobody goes out of their way to say anything too negative, which I think is kind of a theme with the people that I work with and my audience. I think looking for good things in life, writing about good things in life, even if it's a dark song, having a little hope in the song. And, I don't know. I love telling stories in songs, and I love when people hear it and notice it and get the lyrics out and read them. And, it's wonderful and fulfilling to be heard, and hearing that people love it is the thing that keeps making me go, oh, I'm still doing this, still doing it pretty well, maybe even getting better. So my goal is to just keep talking and using other inspirations, like I'll put on John Hyatt, John Prine, and Bob Dylan, and listen and just go, they're amazing. still time to grow, still things to learn. The process I go through for storytelling and writing songs is not too pretty. I've tried very, very many times to just sit and let ideas come. I've had like the perfect moments, like a sunny day, or just, I've gone to a cabin and thought, here I am, let the thoughts flow. And for some reason, the busier I am in life, and I think this is true for a lot of people, the busier I am, the more things start happening, the more my mind is working. And I tend to write songs during chaotic times. So I do that with notebooks, notepads, journals, Post-it notes, receipts, the back of check registries, all these different things. I gather them, I put them in a spot, like I know this might end up being a project. But I have gone back a few years and taken things that I didn't use, and they end up being in the middle of a song. I've always wished and dreamed that I would have like this fabulous organizational mind, and I don't. So I've had to learn that the multitasking stuff I do, I've had to be really creative in making it, making a song come to fruition. That's very much a task that is not easy for me. So I will have all my thoughts, I'll have portions of songs, just a hook line. At some point, I go ahead and put on the calendar that I'm going to record. It is almost like a scary thing that happens for me that scares me into finishing things. So I know myself well enough to know that's how it works for me. When I'm driving, I usually have my cell phone, and it's got the virtual recorder on it. For my last project, that's everything that I gave to everybody to listen to as we developed parts. I might hum a guitar part. I would come home and just, I while I'm driving around, I don't know if it's the fact that things are passing before me visually. I get so many ideas in the car. And it's not about things I'm seeing as I'm driving, it's just something happens to me physically while I'm out there and things are happening. If I'm too relaxed and comfortable, there's something that goes to sleep in my creative brain. And so I know to wake it up, I got to put something on the calendar. I got to gather my things, put them in front of me. There is a point where I do lay everything out and start dividing them into 13 songs. And every once in a while I get really lucky and finish a song in 5 minutes. I've done that many times. It's not usually the way, but it doesn't matter to me. I piece things together. I will find that the things that I like to use seem to have been like complete thoughts top to bottom, but I have to do a lot of editing. I might come up with, 10 verses. Well, you can't have 10 verses in a song. So I might set some of those things aside, and they might end up being on the same record, but they're going to be part of another song for sure. So it's not a real consolidated, perfect, everything in their folders way that I do things. But I do think as a writer, there is something that I've noticed. It's kind of like when you hear sound. We don't really see sound, but we know we're hearing each other. A thing happens with me with thoughts, and I don't know where they come from or the idea for every song. But it just seems like there's something that will come into my head, and if I ignore it too long, it will go away. But it seems like I might hear something I'll hear something on the radio that maybe I should have paid attention to. Maybe it's that there's, an inspiration going around for all writers, and then the really not lazy ones go ahead and write it down, and then it becomes something we're listening to on the radio. So I've learned to, whether it's at 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning, if something wakes me up and hits me, if I wake up and I've had a dream about a song line or a melody, I really try to respect it and think maybe one day these will never come to me again. So don't be lazy and don't be cocky about it. It's like, well, you get inspiration, keep your brain exercised, keep writing, keep new things coming. Just keep traveling as a songwriter, and that is, you got to let things come in and out your mind, and you've got to develop things and learn how to do that in your own way. I think everybody has a different writing process. I know some people can sit and plan that they're going to do that. I envy that a little bit. I just know that's not exactly how I do it. So my process is a little scattered, but in the long run, after I've put on the calendar that I'm going to go record in March, I kick it into high gear and I get things done. And I get with different collaborators, whether I want it to be on piano and I need them to make something. I go to a certain point on guitar, and I'm, not the best guitar player, but I can write a song on guitar all day long. And this last record I did, I actually wrote on piano, and was kind of afraid to give it to my real piano player, because I was like, you're going to think this is, remedial. And he didn't. I think people like when you really give all you got. So I really put myself out there when I'm collaborating with people. It's like no time for hurt feelings. You got to be vulnerable and let things come, get them done, and then the song starts taking life, and it's amazing. I think people connect with storytelling for different reasons, and I think everybody's got their own reasons, whether they really like to go hear comedians reveal themselves and be really vulnerable, or whether they are going to a concert and they really love this artist because of a certain song. I think within everybody, I think there's something that they could have developed to be a performer or a storyteller. And I think with the way people do blogs these days, I think we see that. I think storytelling is not just for, singers, songwriters, or people on TV, or people who are comedians. It seems like everybody has something to say, and I think people gravitate to people who tell the truth and to people who are honest, and they want to be, I don't know, some people want to be shocked, and some people want to be surprised, or some people want to hear their story come out of somebody else's mouth. They want somebody to relate to. I think finding music that we love, like from the time I was little, it's like whatever the connective thing is, whether it's the chord progression in a song or the lyric in a song, people want to own people they see doing performances, whether it's just storytelling or, talking or narrating or singing. They want to find something of themselves in there. They're like, yes, oh my gosh, I get that. Do you hear that? Do you hear what they say? And I notice in my audiences, if we have somebody there for the first time, next time I see that person, they've brought, like 2 friends with them. And they're kind of like, they've kind of taken ownership of me and my music and my band. And they're like, look what we found. I think there's something about that. There's something that, and I do that with books. Like I read all the time. I love being able to tell my friends, like, you need to read Tina Fey's Bossy Pants because you're going to laugh. People probably used to do that with Ayn Rand in The Fountainhead. It's like, you need to read this. This is, and I did read that book. It was hard because it was so, it was like a different language, the way she wrote back then. But it's like, it's so cool to find a magazine article or, a book that I can tell somebody, you know what, this would help you or this would really make you laugh. I think people do that with music, and it's because they found something in you that resonates with them, and then they want to share it with their friends, and it becomes just this great big meeting place where people show up and we all do this thing together, and we have this serendipitous energy that, if the audience is there for me, it's like I'm there for the audience, and then we all kind of have this great energy that we get to exude toward each other, And then we all leave and we go home and we talk about it. And we say, that was thrilling. And then we look for the next place to go do it again. So I think forever, people like, storytellers where, back in Roman times, it's like people would go and do plays, and it's just been a forever thing. People like to watch performers, and they want to, it's like, make me laugh or make me cry, say something that I understand, and say it so that I go, I should have said that. I know exactly what she means. And so we work on this end to do that, because there's nothing better than getting kind of that pat on the back or that cool email or somebody after a show saying, when you sing that one line, it's like awesome. And people cry, and it's like, I jokingly say at shows, I'm here to make you cry and laugh. And basically what you're doing is asking people to be vulnerable to you as an audience, individually and collectively, because that's what you're getting ready to do. And I think the hardest shows are when, early on, when you go out and you play in bars and stuff, you're really earning your stripes and you're earning your thicker skin, because you have to do those, and you have to understand it's sort of up to you to grab people's attention. It's also up to you to promote yourself out of those situations. If you're like, you know what, I'm going to set this up so that people listen to me. And I think you start doing that when you start having something to say. So finding that moment where you can be vulnerable. It's hard to perform and not be vulnerable. It's upsetting. It's upsetting when people chit-chat through your show and really you're trying to put your heart on your sleeve, and it's a weird exercise and it's a weird balance. But finding those moments where people really listen to you, cell phones off, lights down, you got to earn that. They may have come there, but it's like your job is just beginning. Like all the hard work you put into setup and all that stuff, your job is actually just beginning the minute the lights go down. It's like from the first note, it's like you're thinking, should I do that next song next that I've got on the list, or this audience feels different, so I'm going to change the set list. My guys love that. They love when I do that. I've never stuck to a set list in my life. I make one every single time. But the minute I look at the audience, it's like they need something else. So you kind of have to read what's going on with the energy and go, they don't want a rocker. They don't need us to rock out right now. They're a little bit more willing to, listen to some mellower stuff or something. So I don't know. People want to resonate. They want you to resonate with them. And I do the same thing if I go to a show, and I get bored very easily. So if I sit through a whole show, then I think that's something. When I look back to those scary days, when the fun days are when you're really young and you're like, I'm going to be a singer, I'm going to be a songwriter, I'm going to be a novelist, I'm going to be an actress. Looking back on those days, those were really innocent days. Getting into that point, looking back to the point where it was like, what am I going to do with my life? And knowing the scary answer was, I really want to be an artist, but I didn't have any game, and I hadn't written a song, and I knew I could sing, but it's so much more than that. It's like sort of, putting yourself into a position where you're unfolding in front of people, making mistakes in front of people, realizing you're not the best performer, but still forging ahead. When I look back to not doing it to where I am now, like when I'm on a stage and I get to see an audience in front of me, whether it is some big famous person's audience and I've been asked to open for them, but I'm holding their attention, or, after we just opened for Greg Allman as just a 3-piece and we got a standing ovation. And it's like not anybody in that audience had ever heard any of my songs. Getting to people with my songs, knowing I'm emoting and I'm talking and I'm like owning and I'm happy and I'm super comfortable on stage. Looking at that now, it's like I don't think I ever really take it for granted. There's a level of fame that I'm not at, but there is a level of success that I have accomplished, and I'm grateful all the time. I never take it for granted that I'm pretty fortunate that people want me to come do shows and, pay me for it, and that we draw an audience. That's huge. To be asked back to some place, it's like it's a repeat show, but it's like we were good for business. Being good for somebody's business is the whole ball game. It is for any artist. It's like being good, being an artist that draws it's from all the hard work we've done. It's like we were just, me and the band members that I have, nobody ever quit, we're all still together, and it has formed and it's taken shape and it feels real and it is satisfying. It's like all the hard work we do to get on stage. The easiest part of the whole thing is now the thing that used to be the hardest. The thing that you could never imagine before, like when you're not good at being a performer, you're scared up there because you're required to be vulnerable. And when you're holding back, or when you're not singing properly, or when you can tell you're not touching people, well, that sucks. I mean, you wanna touch people. So flash forward to now, where it's like we touch people now. It has something to do with us sticking it out and being real and being vulnerable on stage and working and knowing what a good show is and knowing what songs belong together. I am grateful. Every time I'm on stage, I'm like, can't believe I get to do this. Can't believe people are here to see, me and my band. And it's rewarding and satisfying. And I feel really lucky that I've done all this on my own little label. A big major label did not give me that. Huge radio play from a huge radio campaign did not give me that. So it's been a total grassroots thing where people come see you, then they talk about you, they tell their friends, and a label can plug you in and spread you everywhere, but they can also unplug you. So knowing that we've come so far at maybe more of a turtle's pace, but still here, thriving and traveling to different states and licensing my songs to different things. It's like, it's the music business, but more on my terms. And I love it, and I'm grateful for it every single day.